বয়স 16। আমার মা বাবা বিয়ে দিতে চেয়েছিল, কিন্তু আমি এখন বিয়ে করব না।
আমার নাম সুমিত্রা মণ্ডল। আমার যখন 14 বছর ছিল তখন বাবা মা বলেছিল বিয়ে করলে, আমি বলছি বিয়ে করব না।
আমার বিয়েতে মত ছিল না। আমার মামারা বলছে কি আমার তো মা বাবা নেই, তার জন্য বিয়েটা দিলে পরে ভালো হয়।
हम दोनों अगर पढ़ाई में अच्छे नहीं होते तो शायद हम दोनों की शादी भी करा देती।
This is clear as broad daylight. The arrangers of the marriages, they also know the fact that the child marriage is a crime.
My dad sat me down and told me that you're not allowed to have sex out of marriage and you're gonna get married. And it wasn't like a question, it was like, you're gonna get married.
Love, celebration, and a promise for eternity is what everyone thinks marriage is all about. A wedding is supposedly the most magical moment that marks the beginning of a lifelong journey together. While such a day can serve as the happiest moment to multiple individuals' lives, forced marriage is still continuing to be widespread in many cultures and countries. According to U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, a forced marriage happens when families or others not only arrange the marriage, but also deny the ultimate choice of whether, when, and whom to marry. BBC, a British public broadcast service, explains how Sarah was just 13 when she was told she was going to get married to a man she had never met before, a stranger who had lived in Afghanistan.
I was scared. It was like, you need to go ahead with it, or there'll be consequences. I'd never spoken to a boy, let alone kissed a boy. I'd lived a really sheltered life. I didn't know what to expect.
Her reaction was to try and escape, so she decided to take an overdose, hoping the doctors would help her. But it did not work out.
When I got home, I got physically chastised because I'd taken the overdose. They said you'd brought shame on us as a family.
Scared for her future, Sarah decided to run away from her home. She knew that once she had walked out the house, she would not see anyone again. That being a decision she made at just 13 years of age.
If I'm walking out, I have to keep walking and going.
Sarah's story is not unusual for young girls in many countries. Forced marriage became an offense in 2014, and since then, there have been 491 incidents of it reported to the Metropolitan Police. They have obtained figures which show despite this, the rate of people being charged with forced marriage offenses is dropping from 60% in 2014 to 0 in 2018, and there still haven't been a conviction in London. One reason for that happening is because many young victims feel too afraid to report anything. Moving on, Idaho is reported to be one of the states with the highest rates of child marriage anywhere in the country. Now, the rules are different for each state, but in 25 of them, which are shown in red, means that there is no set minimum age below which a child can't get married even in all of the other states. Where there is a minimum age set, it can be as low as 13 or 14 years old. Here's a list of countries who in the last few years have completely banned child marriage. Victims, alongside advocates, experts, and lawmakers, tried to end this issue in the U.S. Sherry Johnson is trying to convince politicians in her home state of Florida to change the laws that allowed her to be forced to marry at the age of just 11.
I got married to my rapist. For me to marry him, to make the situation of me getting pregnant better overall. He was 20 and I was 11.
Yeah.
This is the case in many locations around the world. On November 1st, 2007, India was successful and made a law to prohibit child marriages and offer protection and support to those affected by such marriages. Section 12 of the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act shows how the state can take legal actions against those involved. This law, having so many advantages to victims and others affected, also has people who are against the law and want it removed. So, the Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006 is all about putting an end to child marriages in India. It's there to make sure kids get to enjoy their childhood and have a say in their own lives. Some advantages about this act is that it is like a superhero for children. It protects them from being forced into early marriages, which can mess up their physical and emotional well-being. Plus, it encourages education, especially for girls. By delaying marriages, kids can focus on school and have a better shot at a bright future. Waiting till they're older means they're more prepared for the responsibilities of marriage and parenthood. It reduces the risk of early pregnancies and gives girls a chance to grow up and fully dive into parenthood. And let's not forget about empowerment. By setting a legal age for marriage, this act gives girls the power to make choices about their own lives. It breaks the cycle of child marriages and lets women pursue their dreams and contribute to society. On a totally different note, some communities have deep-rooted cultural practices that make it hard to implement this act. This means that we all need to work on raising awareness and breaking down these barriers. Enforcing the act can be a challenge too, especially in remote areas with limited resources. It's going to take a team effort from the government and community leaders to make sure everyone's on board and following the rules. Adding to that, there are folks who think this law needs some changes. They believe that cultural traditions and customs should be taken into account. For them, these practices are all about perceiving the cultural identity and keeping their community strong. They see marriage as a big part of their cultural heritage, representing the values and traditions passed down through generations. By sticking to these customs, they feel like they're keeping their cultural identity intact and honoring their ancestors. From an economic perspective, they see early marriage as a way to provide financial stability for their families. They believe this will give the child a better future without financial struggles. Overall, I hope now you feel more informed than before about not only the meaning of forced marriages, but also the importance and different perspectives all of this can be seen, and how everyone can have a different perspective, but at the end of the day, we should let kids enjoy being kids and let everyone choose their own decisions. Throughout this video, I have shown the dark reality of forced marriages. By sharing these stories, I hope to raise awareness and ignite conversations about this issue. Let's work together to create a world where every person has the freedom to choose their own path in life, without the fear of forced marriages. Together, we can make a difference.